Well, how about shooting light for caliber bullets instead of heavy for caliber bullets on your big game hunts? We have someone asking that question, and I think I might have an answer. Also, what about backpack hunting? What do you need to bring? Someone is wondering if it will require multiple changes of socks and underwear. All that and a lot more on this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast. Well, backpack hunting is really popular, and as far as I'm concerned, it got started way back when. For me, it was 1976. Had the pack, had the bag, had the tent, had the little bitty stove, had the desire, had the muscles and the endurance, and I still didn't get my elk. Boy, going elk hunting deep in the wilderness with a backpack setup is challenging. You really have to think this through. Let us hear from our patron, Ed, who's asking about it. Ron, I just took the leap and I signed up for an elk hunt with process-based hunting next year. I know those guys and they are the real deal. They'll take care of you. Ed says, I have a lot of work to do to prepare, and I'm going to start load development for my 6.8 Western in a Model 70 Winchester. That sounds like a good option. I have never done a multi-day backcountry hunting trip because I'm from Kansas, and I'm accustomed to sitting in a tree stand all day. I am wanting to know what advice you have on the logistics. It's a 7-day trip, and I would like to know how much clothing I need to take. I know I need multiple pairs of socks and skivvies, but what about outer clothing? Should I pack multiple shirts, or is it more custom to just hang clothing out to dry type of thing? Any advice you can give me would be much appreciated. Ed. Hey, Ed. If you are going with Tate and process-based hunting, they will be able to tell you all the fine details. I sort of gave up research on backpacking gear about probably 10 to 15 years ago. I used to really keep up on that. What's the latest and greatest tent and sleeping bag and sleeping pad and lightweight stove and the best boots and the best pants and the shirt and all the rest of it. So I don't necessarily have all the answers you might be looking for, but I can give you some generalities. And that is, you don't need a lot of extra socks and skivvies. I would generally take 2 changes of socks, maybe 3, but generally not. And I would have a heavy wool sock or a wool blend sock that really fit well with a tiny liner sock underneath, sort of absorb the sweat and all and help with any kind of friction. And then I would take that extra pair of each and, as you suggested, dry them out after you've washed them in the creek or something, because you just don't need to be hauling that extra weight around. It doesn't matter so much when you're backpacking that you are smelling a little bit and you're a little bit dirty, because that's just the nature of the beast. So I don't normally take extra pants and stuff. I try to find a good fabric in a pant that is going to stand up to all of this and not get wet and stay wet. So the modern Miracle fabrics or merino wool are what you want to look for your pants and your shirt. Definitely a base layer. Again, this all modified a bit depending on the anticipated temperatures, but boy, you can expect to get snow anytime after September in the mountains. Usually it's more like October 1st, and then, man, a snowstorm can hit hard. But you can get rained on and you get plenty darned cold up in the mountains with that. So go for some merino wool base clothing and then a merino wool shirt or some modern Miracle polyester fabric thing that sheds water or does not absorb water and dries quickly. And just expect to get that thing really, really dirty. And then for your outerwear, make double duty out of it. You want a good insulation layer, and that can be down and a down vest or a down jacket if you can keep it dry. And some of them come with outside nylons or some sort of a material on the outside holding in the down and shedding rain and yet letting moisture pass through. To varying degrees, this works. The alternative is your windbreaker rain jacket, and there I find that a multi-layer Gore-Tex style like Simms in Montana sells. Boy, those jackets work really well. Fairly heavy, but they let it breathe and they really keep the water out. And then I also have a rain pant, and that one I usually make it pretty darn lightweight and that I can pull it on and take it off quickly. So I'll have zippered legs on that. And if it zippers all the way up to the waist, so much the better, but at least above the knees so you can get it on and off quickly while you're wearing your boots. And then good backpacking boots. I've been, over the years, I've had all kinds of them. In the last 15 to 20, I think I was pretty much working with Loa boots in a mountain hunter style. And most recently, Kenetrek, and I've got about 3 pairs of those that I've been wearing now for a long time. Good boot, works well for me. Other brands out there with real similar footprints and different features that you're going to want. So not all that much clothing, just the right clothing. And I would keep spares in my truck at the trailhead. And that includes your camp. I don't have time to get into all of this, but you got to think, if I'm going backpack hunting 10 miles back in, that's pretty much a day's walk. And if I'm packing things in and out, you've got 50 to 80 pounds on your pack going in. Then you get an elk, and you've got 4 to 5 trips packing all the meat and stuff out, plus your camp gear. You're going to go out to your truck and then maybe want to stay overnight right there. So have an extra camp at your truck. But like I said, if you're going with process-based hunts on a quasi-semi-guided operation, they will be able to fill you in on lots of details. But I'll tell you this much, you are going to have a great adventure. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was about 21, 22 when I went on that first backpack hunt through the mountains of Montana with my brother. And wow, that was a revelation because we were flatlanders from South Dakota. And this was our first mountain adventure. And there is so much to see and so much to do. You are going to love it, whether you get an elk or not, because I didn't get an elk and I was a committed backpack hunter for the next 30 years at least. All right, let's hear from someone else now. This is the gentleman, another patron, Enrico. And Enrico, I really appreciate your sponsorship here of our show through Patreon. If the rest of you are interested in helping out, you want to become a patron of Ron Spomer Outdoors, go to patreon.com and then look for Ron Spomer Outdoors, and they'll sign you up with all the instructions on how to get involved, and we will be in direct communication. Enrico asks this, what about Hornady SST caliber 30, 308? 125 grain bullet shot in a 16-inch Tikka. My idea is to use a relatively quick powder and a light bullet since it's a short barrel. With such a bullet, I could do almost anything within 250 yards. I've seen using the 130 grain in a 270 in Scotland, and boy, those were effective. So I just don't think that we need such heavy bullets. What do you think, Ron? Well, I wrote back and said, hey, Enrico, a light, thinly jacketed bullet like that can be devastating on broadside behind-the-shoulder shots. But such a bullet could get you into trouble if you have to penetrate a lot of muscle or thick hide and hit a bone en route to the vitals. The low BC of that bullet will increase wind deflection, too, if that's of any concern to you. But when those hit the right spot, they do kill quickly due to heavy fragmentation in the hearts and lungs. I mean, heart and lungs. Let's get the numbers right here, guy. Massive hemorrhaging happens quickly with these. So, Enrico's point here is an old argument that's been going on since at least Roy Weatherby days. Roy was all about high velocity for that hydrostatic shock kind of a kill effect. And I think a lot of that was the result of these typical cup and core bullets of the day fragmenting more like a varmint bullet. And man, once you get that into the vital zone of an animal and you get all that explosive fragmentation, it might not be knockdown power so much as massive hemorrhaging really quickly. And it seems to do the job. So the other school, of course, is a bigger, heavier bullet with deep penetration and an exit hole for good blood trailing. They both work. You just need to understand how and work within that system. All right, now let us go to some questions that Betsy pulled up here. Cosmic Queen is writing about the 30-06 going obsolete video we did a while back. And he says, or she says, some people are not interested in doing math for bullets and just want something they know works. I like math, but this whole video is a waste of my time and boring as H. Well, I'm sorry about that, Cosmic Queen. Not everyone appreciates the same things about guns and ammo and hunting. Plenty of folks just want to get a rifle that they trust and enjoy and shoot game and not worry about ballistics, drops and drifts and remaining energy and all that stuff. But others absolutely dote on it. So I'm sorry if I wasted your time. I would hope that there was something of value in there for you to learn. I will say this, though. I have found that shooters and hunters who will pay attention to ballistics have a leg up, I think. Still, your Daniel Boone types that just take old Betsy and shoot it over. Not you, Betsy. The rifle. His rifle was called Old Betsy. You're my Old Betsy, and you shoot straight and you do it honestly. So you're off the hook on this one. Sit down. It's okay. Daniel Boone's Old Betsy, not mine, was just shooting a round ball, but he knew how it performed. Pour some powder down there, black powder, and get close and shoot. That works for a lot of folks. But other ones really want to know what that bullet's doing at 150 yards and 372 yards and 419 yards in a wind that's from a quartering angle or a right angle at 10 miles an hour or 15 or whatever. The more you know, the more you are prepared to perform under adverse conditions. But hey, you don't have to. Let's hear from Delta. Oh, he's also commenting on the same video. 30-06 going obsolete. Ron, we love you. What you represent, your data, your humor, and your contribution to the shooting sports world. Fabulous video. Oh, cool. I thought after that build-up you were going to say, but. You're just giving me a pat on the back. Oh, you're just up for a comment of the week with that one, Delta. We will keep you in mind. Hey, I appreciate it. See, what did I tell you? Some folks like that sort of information. Other ones, waste of time and boring as H. Let's see what Lauren has to say. Awesome story. Very experienced guide. I'm a little confused. How do the people get away from the bear? Oh, this is about our bear guide. We did an interview with Phil Shoemaker up in Alaska, who saved a couple of his fishing clients from an angry brown bear that charged over and did not get them, but was standing right over them, and he had to shoot it with a 9mm handgun. It was a really big deal, but he's using a heavy 4 caliber bullet, not a frangible light fast bullet, to penetrate that bear, and he shot it, I think, 5 times. And the answer to the question there, how the people get away, they simply dropped when that bear charged. It was tall grass they were walking in, so they just fell down thinking the bear might not be able to see them, and it worked because he ran to where they were, and he was literally standing over them looking, where did they go? And that's when Phil, who was just to the side, started shooting him in the heart, and it all worked. That's a great video if you guys haven't heard it. Now, that was the podcast, right, Betsy? Yeah, that's one of our podcasts. Phil Shoemaker, Bear Guide in Alaska. Man, that one's got a lot of views, and people really like it because Phil is the real deal. All right, thanks for that one, Lauren. David, this is in regards to a recent interview we did with Linda Powell, who is a PR person for Mossberg. And he says, please have her back on the show soon, ! This is an awesome channel. 2 exclamation points. All right. I am scoring today, folks. Hey, I want to thank Linda for giving me that interview and doing such a great job. I knew she would because she is just the real deal and a great communicator and straightforward and honest and simple and has some amazing stories. This is a woman who had never hunted, maybe shot a gun once or twice as most people do growing up, but really was a city slicker, not a hunter. And she just went in for a job. It happened to be Remington, and she got the job, and then the people working there told her she needs to go out and shoot and hunt and whatever, and she got started, and the next thing you know, they found a real gem, and she became the chief handler for people like me, outdoor writers, the press. And she would put together trips for the press and take us hunting and show us the new products and all kinds of fun stuff. And she was just a wonderful person, still is. And here's another one on Linda Powell. I see her name right here. This is from JMC about Linda. It says, Ron, you always have the best guests. Why, thank you. You definitely need to have Linda back on the show, even if it's just to tell stories. I don't know if this can happen, but could she give us or set up a factory tour so that we could see how the Mossberg rifles are made and the quality that goes into them? What do you think, Ron? Lots of prayers and well wishes for Linda. Oh, I think the prayers and well wishes for Linda are because when we did that interview, she was waiting for a kidney. She has a kidney issue now for years and years, and she knew that eventually it would get her or she would have to get a kidney. And fortunately, very soon after that interview, a kidney became available. She had the successful surgery, and she's recovering. The last I heard from her, she said, I'm going hunting this fall. So good news from Linda, everybody. But as far as the seeing how Mossberg rifles are made, boy, I'll bet you Linda would be up for that. Maybe she and I can discuss having me go to wherever the plant is where they manufacture those things and kind of go through the steps and show you how all that stuff happens. Mossberg, of course, is an all-American company that has been around for, oh my gosh, they're going clear back to, what, the early 1900s, I believe? O.F. Mossberg. Yeah, they've been making rifles and shotguns and even a few handguns for a long, long time. So maybe we can put that together. We'll see. Thanks for the idea, JMC. Now, this is Steven. What is he talking about? A scope. Ron, what is the minimum amount a guy should spend on a reliable scope? Oh, that is a good question, Steve. Get that a lot, too, you know. I would say up until several months ago when we did a deep dive review on a really cheap scope, I would have said the minimum seems to be about $150 for one that's not going to be put on a very high recoiling rifle. So say 270 Winchester on down. That means they're not quite durable enough to handle bigger recoiling rifles. So the 150s could probably work out for you if you don't demand a lot, like you're not trying to do long range shooting or really low light situations and such. You can get pretty reliable scope for about $150. And I always think of my friend Tom, who has the basic starter scope Bushnell sold a long time ago, and I'm talking probably 1970s. He has been using that on a 270 Winchester and a 22-250 Browning lever action rifle for all that time, and he does not baby his scopes and equipment. I mean, I always say that, Tom, you treat your rifle and scope kind of like a hammer. Throw it in the truck, and when you need it, grab it. The rest of the time, it rattles around back there. But that scope has not failed him, and it was the cheapest model they made, so that's pretty amazing. But I think what I personally would do is try to get somewhere around that $250 range, get a little bit higher quality, and then go on up. I don't see huge advantages once you get up over about $800 to $1,000 in the durability of the scope, or probably even the optical quality, but you get a lot more bells and whistles. So if you don't demand a lot of bells and whistles, you just want a pretty simple scope, you're going to pay about that much, and I think do just fine. But here's where the surprise came in. I went on Amazon and looked for the cheapest scope I could find, $30. This is a joke, and I am going to cover it and make fun of it in one of my Ron Spomer Outdoors videos. So we got the darn thing, and gee, it looked pretty darn good, actually. Came in a cheap little box, and the box was bent. I thought the thing was going to be broken before I even got it out of the package. It wasn't. And then we put it through the same paces we do our really high-end scopes. Put it in the water. We dialed it and turned it this way and that, and it came back. It seemed to move accurately all the time. We twisted the power dial from 3 to 9 and back, and it didn't change exactly where the shots were being deposited. I wouldn't use it for, let's say, a target shooting competition, but for a hunting rifle, the thing was working. So then I thought, I'll break it by shooting it on a high recoiling rifle. And I put it on, I think it was a 6.5 PRC for a while. I shot a bunch of times with that, and I didn't bother it, so I stuck it on a 375 H&H, and I think I took about 8 shots with that, and it survived that as well. I was absolutely dumbfounded. $30? Wow. Now, it is made in China, and a lot of folks are saying, I don't want to buy Chinese stuff. I just don't want to support that communist regime business. I want to support American companies. So do consider that. I'm not suggesting that you rush right out and buy one of these, but it goes to show that you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money to get a basic functional scope. Now, maybe I just got lucky with this one. I don't know, one off, but I was really surprised at the price point on that thing. All right, Sky asking me a question about 38 caliber. So can I ask you a question? Why are calibers in 38, 40 caliber, not 37 caliber, and 42 caliber, why are they specific to specific measurements? Well, I'm not quite sure they are, Sky. There's a lot of confusion with handgun cartridges, like the 380 is really the same as a 9mm, the diameter of the bullet, but it's not a 40. It's a 35. 357 Magnum can shoot 38 special. What? The 38 measurement was taken at the outside of the case as it was around the bullet. Why they did that, I don't know. But that confuses things. And then some of them are reported in fractions of an inch like this, while other ones are in millimeters, and that confuses the heck out of people. But the 40 caliber takes a .40 inch bullet, not a .38. But the 38 does take a .357. Yeah, it gets confusing. Oh, man. Why are they not specific measurements? That's just it. I don't know. Like the 244 Remington cartridge, which later became renamed the 6 millimeter, actually takes a .243 inch diameter bullet. The 223 Remington takes a .222 inch diameter bullet. The manufacturers of guns and ammo can kind of pick whatever name and number they want. So they sometimes just go for a number that sets them apart. It's close enough, that final little digit on something like that. It's such a fine, tiny little difference that doesn't really matter all that much. And it gives it a cool name that people will remember. And that's kind of the best answer I can give you for that. Just the way the system has always worked, unfortunately. All right, Arthur, what do you have here? How to sight your rifle in for 100 yards. Arthur says, Jim Shockey advertised laser pointers that fit into the barrel that provide silent dialing. I never used it, would like to see them reviewed. That's all he says. Well, I think what you are talking about, Arthur, are, you're right, it's sort of like a laser pointer. It's cone-shaped, and that sticks into the muzzle of various rifles, so it'll fit from 22 on up to, probably 45s. I've never tried the really big ones. But you just push that in and hope that the cone fits in the muzzle nicely, tightly, and then it projects pretty much down the center of the bore, a little red dot or a green dot out there at a distance, and then you turn your scope to match those two. And it doesn't provide silent dialing. I'm not quite sure what you mean there, but it is a way of bore sighting to get on paper. And they work. It's not going to be absolutely precise, but it's a way that a lot of people like to use. I'm not as crazy about it as I am my old look down the bore system. With bolt actions, you can just remove the bolt, center it in the bore like a peep sight on the target. And many times I have gotten to where I am literally hitting or right where the bullseye is on that deal. I just turn my scope and match it up with what I'm seeing in the center of the bore. Doesn't cost anything, doesn't require batteries and all that good stuff. But yeah, those things work, and they're available. There's lots of them out there. It would be called a laser bore sighter, a generic term for it. All right, let's see what Tito has to say at 6. This is a timestamp, 16:53. He leaves the breech open and says he'll let the barrel cool down a bit. It's contradicting what I've learned before, so I'm curious. See, I used to do 22 rifle shooting, 22 rimfire, I think is what he means, coached by an actual Olympic-grade shooter. Well, once after a set, I opened the breech and let the smoke clear. My coach told me to keep the breech closed to keep the barrel up to temperature. He said it's to keep the accuracy consistent. Otherwise, the first few shots would be slightly off until the barrel warmed up again. So the question I have is whether it's different for these larger calibers. All right, I get where you're going, Tito. Yes, it is different. Good question. A 22 rimfire doesn't have much powder. It doesn't have much heat, so it does heat more slowly. The barrel heats up more slowly. And for, I guess, target competition, yes, you want some real consistency. And the way to do that, I think, is to, yes, keep your barrel at roughly the same temperature. Some barrels shoot beautifully cold and then start to shoot a little more erratically when they're warmed up or to a different point of aim or something, and that's probably what he was talking about. But with center fires, you get a lot of fire really quickly, and your barrel can get pretty darn hot after just 3 shots. And then it starts to change its crystalline structures, and the tensions are different in there, and it kind of twists, and your accuracy can suffer. Some barrels don't, some barrels do. Heavier barrels don't do it as much as thin barrels. There's just all sorts of things going on there. But that's basically what's going on. And if you shoot your centerfire barrels hot, that wears them out more quickly. It's the flame temperature at the throat, right where the bullet emerges, that starts to break up the rifling until it looks like, we call it alligator hide or an old concrete sidewalk that's breaking up. And that ruins your accuracy by malforming your bullets or tearing the skins of your bullets and different things. So that's a common thing. So we try to keep things cool. We'll shoot perhaps 3 times and then let things cool down. And also when we are testing our rifles for hunting accuracy, well, we're not going to be taking 4 or 5 warm-up shots at that deer before we engage. We might have a 10-degree below barrel when we shoot. So we want to know where our cold barrels do shoot. And that's why we test that way. And then after a 3-shot group, we figure we're pretty much done shooting at that particular deer, unless it's the world's dumbest. So we really want to know what our rifle's going to do with about 3 shots. Some people prefer 5. And if you really want to nitpick about what the rifle is totally capable of doing for precision shooting, shot after shot after shot, yes, you do need to do 5-shot groups or 10-shot groups or even more. But for a hunting rifle, I just don't think it really applies. Okay, let's see. My wife really likes this one. Who's this? The BS Samurai. Okay, that would be Buffalo Chips Samurai or something along those lines. He says, my wife really likes this one. I don't know which one he's referring to yet, but let's see if we can't find out. I see a lot of comments here that are clearly from people with a lot less experience with setting up and shooting rifles than Ron has. I find it a little disrespectful and ridiculous, to be honest, to question scope ring placement, torque, and even question the ability of the scope. Did you not notice what scope this is? It is not Ron's first rodeo here, guys, and I would hazard a guess that he has mounted, sighted, and hunted successfully with more rifles than most of us have had hot dinners. I like this guy. Samurai, you're my man. It is common on pure hunting scopes that the parallax is fixed at 100 yards. Yes, even on the very best and most expensive hunting scopes like the Swarovski Ron was using. As Ron has explained, correct head alignment will eliminate parallax to a large degree. Out to normal hunting ranges, and certainly not a big issue at 100 yards. And as for the MOA guarantee, I am pleased to see that Ron is backing the rifle maker's reputation and going to great lengths to point out that all rifles will have a preference for certain bullets and loads, and regardless how much you pay for the rifle and who builds it, sometimes a certain bullet will require some work to find the powder type, the charge, the seating depth, the primer combination to shoot consistent small groups. Good points there, Samurai. I have no doubt that Ron will test some other bullets and some powder combinations in this rifle, and that'll shoot well under 1 MOA. And it's also highly likely that with some playing around with powder charges and seating depths with this bullet, he will find a happy place that the barrel likes. I think it's worth pointing out that a single-shot falling block rifle that is capable of 1.5-inch 3-shot groups at 100 yards in the hands of a competent, experienced shooter is a minute of deer inside of normal hunting distances between 0 and 300 yards. For me, the fact that Ron is taking the time to provide real results and allow for everything to be viewed as he works through getting his rifle to shoot with his preferred bullet, it is a testament to his honesty and integrity. We got a new comment of the week, guys. It is also showing that he is confident in his own competency, and he's humble enough to take on our thoughts and criticisms as he shares his knowledge and experiences to help the average hunter and shooter fast track on his journey to becoming a more competent shooter and confident hunter. So keep up the great work, Ron. I like Samurai. Well, that's flattering, but I do appreciate it, obviously. What Samurai must be talking about here, I'm confident, is my new pet rifle, my special expensive rifle that Betsy got tweaked up for me, the Park West Arms SD10 falling block single-shot rifle with the case color hardened receiver and tally rings that are also case color hardened, and oh, it's a gorgeous rifle. Exhibition grade walnut, one of those dream guns. But it really shoots. And people are watching me as I develop loads for it. I'm getting things going here. And they're telling me I should send it back. And Park West Arms should be ashamed for building it because it won't shoot sub-MOA. And because it costs so much money, it ought to shoot half MOA or a quarter MOA. And they tell me I need to bed the action and free float the barrel. And guys, you're missing the point. This is a falling block single shot, 2-piece stock. You can't glass bed the action. It's not bedded to anything. So not quite understanding what's going on. And this is, I think, a problem. I wrote about it recently for an article, a rifles column that I do for Sporting Classics magazine, in which I think we're fixating so much on precision long-range shooting and hyper accuracy that we're losing track of what hunting rifles are. There's more to a hunting rifle than quarter-inch groups. I mean, a 12-pound rifle that shoots a quarter-inch group all day might be great if you're sitting at the bench on the range, but to climb an 8,000-foot mountain and search for an elk with that thing might slow you down a bit more than you really want to. So a single-shot rifle is not particularly engineered to be a sub-MOA performer, but these Park West SD10s generally shoot under MOA. They are very beautifully built and very precisely built, well built. And I value in them the weight, the balance, the gorgeous materials, and the way they are put together, and then the function of the rifle, how it works and how it carries. All of those things mean more to me than quarter-inch groups. I don't need quarter-inch groups. With a 757 Mauser, I'm probably going to hold my shots inside of 300 yards, maybe 400 on rare occasions. But the whole idea for me is to enjoy the rifle, carrying it, using it, and developing loads for it, and just all the things that we do with our rifles, and then going hunting with it. And I've already had great success with it in Africa. Every animal that I shot at with it, I got. So it can't be that big of a problem. So I would just say, stay tuned if you're interested in learning a little bit about single-shot rifles and what I think, as this gentleman pointed out, we all need to do with our rifles to get them shooting as well as we would like them to. It's not just one and done. You've got to play around with different bullets, different loads, different powders, and all these things, and develop the thing. Maybe I'll do a little bit of tweaking here and there with some fit on the forend or something like that. Probably won't have to, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is what I'm saying on this one, when guys will write in and say, you ought to throw that away or send it back and demand your money back. No chance, guys. It already shoots with just the 2 loads I've tested well enough. I'm just going to work on it and even get it shooting better. So stay tuned. All right. Let's see. I think that's it for what Betsy pulled up. Let's see what the team has on the computer to surprise me today. Fire up there, Mr. Computer. There we go. Oh boy, Eastern Oregon. I hear quite a bit from folks in Eastern Oregon. Appreciate that. Must be a lot of hunters over there. This is John. Hi, Ron, and thank you for answering my question. Oh, that was easy. Wait a minute. What did I say? This must be a previous one. I just bought a 6.5 Creedmoor. Oh, I can't believe I said that. Now I'm going to catch a lot of flack from Creedmoor haters. Nah, Creedmoor's a fine cartridge. It has the same ballistics, shoots the same bullets as the highly valued and vaunted 6.5 by 55 Swede, as we always say. And it's just amazing how many people say, boy, I would never shoot a Creedmoor. The Swede, however, boy, that's a good one. It's the same bullet at the same speed, guys. It's just a different container holding the powder. Let's just see what John in Oregon has to say about it. So he's got this 6.5 Creedmoor in a Bergara rifle. Those are good, accurate rifles. Just a little background. I'm a bow hunter. Well, they're not going to let you use that Bergara. I have harvested 27 bulls and over 250 deer with my bow. Holy mackerel. Didn't I read one of these a while back? The team might have pulled the same one out, but let's keep going. It's pretty interesting. I'm 67 years old, and I'll be 68 this October. I'm slowing down a little bit, but not much. So I'm preparing now for when I can no longer hunt elk with my bow. I know I've done this one before, but I want to do it again because it's really cool. I've looked and looked for Nosler Partition factory loads, and I even looked in my local gun stores here in La Grande, Oregon. They tell me that they cannot get them. I've been told that the Partition is the best bullet ever developed. A lot of people think that. I even went to Nosler's website. No luck. All these gun stores sell reloading ammo, and they can't get it. Well, where can I get a 6.5 factory load with a Partition bullet? And would you recommend that for my Bergara rifle? The rifle was $850, synthetic stock. Please email me my response. Oops, sorry, bud. I just saw it now. You can also answer it on your podcast. Oh, whew. But I might not see it. No, but you might hear it. So do check in on that. I am subscribed, though. Oh, well, then you'll catch it. I was told that 140 grain would be my best choice for deer and elk. If you ever want to kill an elk here in Eastern Oregon, I've got a great spot. You might not shoot a giant, but the meat is excellent. That's good enough for me, man. I've also invented a shooting sling for old people like me. And he's suggesting I might want that too. If you want to hear more about it, just ask. Thanks again, John. Oh, John, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat here, but let me think on that part. I don't know what's going on, why you can't find partitions. I mean, that is kind of the standard for Nosler. You know, they kind of hang their hat on that bullet. Old John Nosler invented that way back in 1948, and that kind of became the ultimate controlled expansion bullet for a long time. And it's still darn good. Why you can't get it might just be that same demand thing that's going on with all ammunition components. There's so much demand, and then they can't find materials, and I don't know what's going on. But if I were you, I would call Nosler. And if Nosler, any of you guys from Nosler are listening, write in or give me a call and explain what's going on and where people can find their favorite Nosler bullets. I'm sure you want to sell them, and folks are looking to buy, so let's figure out where we can get them together. That's the best I can tell you. But if you're looking for a different type of bullet that'll do the same job, there are quite a few, as long as they're controlled expansion style bullets. I think you'll do fine. Now, someone last time we did one of these podcasts were complaining they could not find Swift A-frame bullets, which are sort of a beefed up version, the same style as the partition, with a thicker jacket and a thicker wall. And I think they even have bonded lead in part of it. But a good substitute from Nosler would be their AccuBond. That is a bonded bullet, and in my experience, you get about the same weight retention in that as you do with the partition, but you get the benefit of a little better BC, a little better form factor, so you will retain more energy downrange for a little bit better performance and a little bit less wind deflection too. So you might want to try those. And then other brands have similar things. So any bonded bullet or any bullet with a horizontal wall through it like the partition has are going to work well for you. Or the mono metal bullets. I'm really having great luck with those. All copper bullets with a hollow nose that expands really well. Those will all work well for elk. And yes, write me again. Tell me a little bit more about that sling. That sounds interesting. I'd like to learn a little more about it. All right, let's go to Alabama, Sanford. Regarding a 270 Winchester, I found a rifle with 7.5-inch twist in a 270 Winchester. That seems aggressive. The main purpose is hunting in the South and the West. What is your best advice? Well, Sanford, what you're seeing there is that some manufacturers, and Browning in particular, are now offering 270 Winchesters chambered in tighter twist barrels for the people who want to try the longer bullets. Long bullets need faster twists to stabilize. And when Winchester came out with the 6.8 Western, which is a 270, several manufacturers made bullets long to work in that optimally. So you've got, I think, some 160 grains, 170 grains, 175 grains. Might be 165 grain. There's even one a little bit heavier, I think, than 175. But at any rate, you need the fast twist for those. If you want to shoot those in your 270, you're going to have to hand load. But this is what the 7.5 twist rate is in that barrel, is for shooting those. If you're just planning to shoot standard 270s up to 150 grain with standard bullets, you do not need that fast twist rate. They'll still shoot just fine and should have no problem being accurate, but you really don't need that twist rate. Okay, Glenn from Ontario. When you travel to Africa or other exotic places, do you eat everything you kill? I can't eat that much. I've heard you talk about zebra, giraffe, among other species. I was brought up to believe you never kill anything you can't make into a meal. I still love your show, and I respect your knowledge on guns and ammo. I've learned a lot from you. Sincerely, Glenn. Yeah, Glenn, this is a common point and a valuable one. It's kind of a tradition in my family as well as many others. I will say, your average middle-class, blue-collar country folk sort of a thing. It's like, why do you go out and kill something if you're not going to utilize it? Well, what about rats and mice and mosquitoes and termites and then lots of creatures that we just simply want to get rid of because they're a pain in the butt, or they're costing us money, or they're eating our grain, or they're causing diseases and passing them out, this kind of stuff. But I hear what you're saying. You don't go deer hunting and leave a deer, for gosh sakes, any edible thing. But then plenty of people like raccoons And actually, I like raccoon. Great meat. Almost anything is good meat. I know Meat Eater has even been doing things on eating coyotes. I haven't gone there yet, but just proves the point. You can eat almost everything. But the Africa question is a good one, and every absolute stitch is eaten in Africa, just not by the person who shot it. Obviously, someone like you and I cannot go to Africa and shoot a zebra and eat it all in a week or two that we're there. And we're going to be doing more than just a zebra. You'll probably get a kudu, and you'll get an impala, and you'll get a springbuck. And you can't eat all that stuff. You can have a few meals off of it, and we do that. I mean, that's a big part of it. It's like, oh boy, now I get to try a sable. Delicious. Zebra, fantastic. Warthog, darn good. All this kind of stuff. But the rest of it is fed to all the other people there, and especially the community folks, the rural villagers. It's hard for agriculture to make it over in a lot of these countries. They don't have enough water. The soil's not all that good. The people are used to living kind of hand to mouth. You come in hunting big game and you provide them with the meat, and man, do they appreciate it, to the degree that they stop poaching in many cases. And there are incident after incident, place after place, in which the game had been pretty much wiped out by people just trying to get some protein. And a white hunter, professional hunter, will come in, somebody with a lot of backing and a lot of money, and set up the infrastructure, the lodging and all the rest of it, and then hunt much the way we do here. In other words, you take 10% of the population and you protect the rest of it, and you stop the poaching, and you employ the locals. And then you provide them with the meat, so they're still getting the meat, but they're doing it in a controlled fashion, sustainably. Beautiful system, and that, when I am in Africa, the only wildlife I see are in places like that. And I've done plenty of touring in areas where they don't have hunting. You cannot find a wild animal, period. They just simply poach them out of existence. So that's what's going on in Africa. Liam from New Zealand. Hi, Ron. I have been hunting since I was a young kid, just rabbits and birds. But now that I've gotten older and my license, I got a license now. He must be around 18, 20 years old or something. I'm not sure. At first, I went out and I bought a cheap rifle, which came with a scope and a suppressor. It was a TC Compass chambered in 270. Sounds like a pretty good option, actually. I've been looking all over the market, and with all these options available, I have no idea on what to get. A lot of my hunting consists of red deer and goats, varying from 150 meters out to 500 yards or meters plus. So far, I have narrowed it down to a 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 PRC, 7mm 08 or 7mm Remington Magnum, and now once I have found a cartridge, I need a rifle. So far, I've been into the local hunting stores, and they've told me about this Tikka T3X and the Bergara, while one of my mates has just gotten a 7mm 08 Sauer 100. I would like a rifle that's capable of shooting out to those distances and utilizing the cartridge to the best of its abilities. What would your opinion be on all this? Cheers. I love your videos. It's really great for doing a bit of research. And we'll appreciate that, Liam. And I'll tell you what you mentioned there are all pretty good options. I would not put the 6.5 Creedmoor at the top of the list. That'd be my last choice. It works well for a lot of folks, but it's the slowest one of the bunch. Going to have more drop, more wind deflection, and all the rest of it. The 6.5 PRC is going to add about 200 feet per second to the same bullets. So you get all the advantages of that, plus more speed. 7mm 08 is ballistically performing about like the 6.5 Creedmoor, but you can get heavier bullets in it, and it's really great for any closer things, but I would easily handle game out to 350, 400 yards with that. 7 mag, now you're adding about 300 feet per second to the velocity of the same bullets from the 7. But you've got more powder, it's a little more expensive, but a great all-around cartridge, can do everything. So my first pick would be the 7 mag, because I know that's going to cover the heaviest deer and no problem with the lighter ones. And the 708, that's one of my pets, and I really love that, but I think I'd go with the 6.5 PRC. Up to red stag size, you can have no problems. And then the rifles you mentioned are all excellent. That T3X, I did a review on that recently in a 308, and oh my gosh, it was wonderfully accurate and smooth and perfectly functional and everything else. And Bergaras over the years, I've had some great Bergaras and reviewed some of those, and they've got a great reputation. And then that Sauer 100, I test drove that a few times, and I think it was in a 308, and we were shooting sub MOA groups pretty regularly with that. A lot of folks really love that one. So I can't just nail it down for you, buddy, but you've got some great choices, and I don't think you'll be wrong on any of them. Alex from California, I love your YouTube channel and podcast, Ron. I watch and listen to them every chance I get. Well, appreciate that, Alex. I am preparing for my first big game trip. It's a cow elk hunt by working up a load for my Tang Safety Ruger M77 and 270 Winchester. That was the rifle I used on my first elk hunt. I have a variety of lead bullets, 150 grain partitions, 150 grain interlocks, and some mono metals, 110 grain barns, 140 grain barns, 133 grain shock hammers. And I wanted some help on the priority of load testing, cleaning between the loads, etc. As I remember you saying that monometal bullets need a few sacrificial shots down the bore before they group well. Wondering if that's the same for shooting lead after the monometal bullets, or would it be better to clean the bore in between all of them? Also, I understand shot placement is key, but would you recommend I focus on one bullet over another? Oh, gosh. Alec, that is just a great question, and I get it a lot. I sometimes feel like I'm being really redundant in answering it, but different folks listen to the show at different times, and also I guess we jump right in there and say, any of those are going to work well. The interlock does not hang together as well as the partition. You're going to lose more mass to that. It's more likely to break up. But I have taken a lot of game with interlocks, including elk. I remember once with a 284 Winchester, I think it was must have been 154 grain bullet interlock that I hand loaded one shot. Had my bull 6x7. The mono metal bullets, I always love those. 140 grain barns, absolutely. 133 grain shock hammers, boy, that should do the job. I've just having great luck with shock hammers lately. And now good old 150 grain partition, but based on what someone else just asked, you're not going to say, you're not going to find them. I don't know. But yeah, any of those will work. Would I prefer one over the other? I'm just a mono metal guy, and I think I would go for either the 140 barns or the 130 shock hammer, 133 grain shock hammer. Yeah, that should work for you. Now, about that barrel cleaning business, you're right. If you try to shoot copper bullets in a barrel that's been fouled with gilding metal jacketed bullets, like your interlock or your partition, most times you will not get great accuracy. You need to clean all the fouling out before. And that means the gilding metal fouling or the copper fouling. Someone asked me recently, I can't find any gilding metal solvent. It's only copper solvent. Same thing, guys. All gilding metal is copper mixed with 5% zinc. And that makes gilding metal. So you've got to use copper remover. So push the copper remover through your barrel on this solvent with a patch behind it. When the patch comes out blue, you're picking up oxidized copper and gilding metal. So you just keep repeating that until the patches come out white. Then you know you've got all that copper fouling out. Now you shoot your all copper bullets and you should get top accuracy. Give it a couple fouling shots and then start keeping track of how you're hitting. There's going to be your maximum accuracy. I've been testing it the other way around and haven't found it to be consistent. It seems like the gilding metal will shoot just fine over a bore that's been fouled. But some bores, some rifles, prefer to have fouling only by the bullet you're shooting, whatever type it is. This is just that individualistic barrel thing we talk about a lot. Every rifle is different, so sometimes you might have one that will only shoot nice tight groups if you shoot only one bullet through it, one type of bullet through it, over and over. Mix and match and things go to heck. So something you have to learn about your pet rifle. Now we're down to Australia, where Steve has something to say. G'day, Ron. I think that's how they say it there. G'day. G'day to you too, Steve. Just wanted to drop you a note to say thanks. I have just ordered a Tikka T3X Superlight in 7mm 08, and my decision was based after watching and reading all your reviews on the 7mm 08. I am an ex-Australian soldier and started my service with the SLR L1A1 7.62 and the Ostire 5.56mm. Simply, I didn't want a 308 as everyone in Oz has one. You're kind of like me. I am fortunate to live in deer country, so I can't wait for the new Tika 7mm 08. Thanks again. Your knowledge and advice is greatly appreciated. Regards, Steve. Well, thanks for that, Steve. I hope I didn't steer you wrong. I don't think so, because the 7mm 08 has just performed beautifully for me for decades. And it's essentially the same ballistics as the 757 Mauser, and that old warhorse has been taking game since it was created in 1892, became fairly popular, and 2 years later, some people say, no, it was really 1894, but that's when it really started to roll. At any rate, it's been around the world and it's done everything, and the 7mm 08 is just sort of a modern-shaped canister shooting the same bullets to pretty much the same velocities. And if Bell in Africa in 1900 could take some 800 elephants with a 7mm 08, or the 757 Mauser, actually, or 275 Rigby, as his was called, because it was built for him by Rigby, and they didn't want to use the 7mm designation. It was a British rifle, so they went with the continental style, shall we say. So you've got a lot of history behind you with that 7mm 08, even though it didn't officially become a cartridge until 1980. But, yeah, let me know how that thing works for you, and I will read some of the results to the audience the next time, or whenever you get done taking some of those great Australian game animals you have there. And next time I'm in Australia, I'm going to look you up, so be sure to pay attention. I may come knocking on your door someday and ask if you want to go on a deer hunt. That looks like all of those. I do want to point out our 7mm book. If you're interested in the 7mm, which I think are kind of the ultimate cartridge, the perfectly balanced bullet size for hunting anything and everything, like our 708 and our 757 and the 7 rem mag and all the rest of them. There are 60 some of them covered in this book. The history of them, who invented them, when they did it, and lots of fascinating things about cartridge development in these, and then a lot of ballistic data and stuff, and a chart that shows you how fast each one is, so you can kind of sum them up and say, oh, here's one that's really slow, here's one that's in the middle, and this is the fastest one. I'll be darned. Get that on Amazon. And if you want to spend more money than you really need to, you can order it through Ron Spomer Outdoors website, ronspomeroutdoors.com. Charge you way too much there just for my signature. But that's what the team does. I just crank them out. They do all the selling. And then the other book is still selling well, is our predator hunting book, even though it's getting kind of long in the tooth here. I wrote that way back in 2012, but it's still a lot of good pertinent information about predators and why they come to predator calls and how to set up and which cartridges and bullets work well and all the rest of it. You can order that the same way, Amazon, or go to ronspomeroutdoors.com, and I'll sign that thing for you, and hope you have some good luck with the tricks and techniques that I've listed in there. All right, our comment of the week is definitely going to Samurai. Not only did he butter me up with a lot of praise, but he had some really good points. That's the main thing. I don't necessarily need to be buttered up and patted on the back, but I do appreciate it. But Samurai had some really good points about understanding your rifle and what it's supposed to do, and not immediately rejecting it because it didn't shoot quarter MOA groups. You've got to understand the type of rifle and what it is used for. It's about more than just accuracy. So cut yourselves and your friends some slack and don't judge a rifle strictly by its accuracy. Yeah, lots more going on there, folks. So whatever you're shooting, whether it's super accurate or not, if you're enjoying it and you're having great success, that's the rifle for you. So enjoy it, shoot it honestly, and hunt straight. We'll see you next time.